Okay, the hips. Starting off nice and simple with front leg of gate, we're looking for adduction, internal rotation and flexion, like so. We can exaggerate the frontal plane by pushing the hands forward. We can exaggerate the transverse by driving it into a rotation. And we can exaggerate the frontal plane by driving the hands overhead, reaching more into a deduction. From there, we can look at externally rotating the foot. So as we come forward, all we do is lunge and turn that foot out, like so. Again, you can drive more external rotation by exaggerating the transverse plane, by rotating our body the opposite way, opening the joint between the pelvis and the femur. We can also drive the these frontal planes some more to get more a deduction by driving a hand over the top or bringing this hand down to the side. And again, we can drive more sagittal plane by pushing forward to get some more flexion, like so. We can then have a look at driving flexion, abduction and internal rotation. So what we're going to look at is flexing from the hip and driving back here, internally rotating, like so, or just taking it a little bit wider, keeping this flexion at the hip. We can just push forward, or we can drive across, or we can create more internal rotation, like so. We can also do this with external rotation. All we need to do is start with a right foot externally rotated, and again we're going to step back this time. So this hip is kept in external rotation the whole time. Then all we're going to do is drive more frontal plane, like so, drive more sagittal, or drive more transverse. So that's more external rotation occurring, like so. We've then got extension movements that we're going to have a look at next. So starting off, we're looking for extension, abduction and internal rotation, which is this. So we're looking at this right hip now. From there you can exaggerate that by driving the hands over the top, driving them across to one side, watching this right hip open, or rotating towards the hip on landing to create more internal rotation at the back leg and gate. From there we're still going to look for extension, but we're going to look for external rotation this time. So a nice and easy way is just to externally rotate the foot again and keep walking through it. So we're holding this in external rotation and stepping a little bit wider. Then we're just going to drive that up overhead to exaggerate sagittal plane. We're going to drive it overhead to exaggerate frontal plane to get more abduction. Or we're going to rotate to get more external rotation at that right hip, like so. From there, what we're looking for is, I'm not too sure. Okay, looking at thoracic spine next. The first one we're looking for is type 1 motion, right lateral flexion, left rotation. So I'm going to start my left leg forward, and I'm going to right laterally flex and left rotate, like so. So just kind of like a tennis serve. We can drive more frontal plane by driving this hand over top or reaching further down with my right hand, like so. We can drive more transverse by reaching round, like so. And then we can drive more sagittal plane by driving the hands up into extension, like so. The next one we're looking for is right lateral flexion, left rotation again, but with flexion. So we're just going to come into here. So we're dropping that head and everything down. Again, we can exaggerate sagittal by just driving the hands out a little bit further. The frontal by reaching, and the transverse by rotating more, or twisting the body and the head more round to the side. Feeding in and out drivers as well. So here we're looking at thoracic spine for type 2 motion. So we're going to go for right lateral flexion, right rotation. So all I'm going to do is start my right leg forward, right laterally flex and rotate up into extension. To start with, driving the head, hand and head. If I want to exaggerate extension more, I'll just drive my head further back and my hand further back. Or if I want to drive into the rotation more, into the transverse plane, I drive my hand further. If I want to exaggerate into the frontal plane, I just drive my hand over the top further or reach further down. Here. Still looking behind me as I go. Next we're going to be looking for flexion. So this time I'm going to start my right leg forward again, and I'm going to drop my chest this time, and I'm going to drive the motion with my head. So it's right laterally flexing, right rotating. Then again, I can drive further into flexion driving a hand. I can drive it into the frontal plane by driving a hand over the top. Or I can rotate into it more, driving the transverse plane. Okay, foot and ankle. So starting off with dorsiflexion, you can drive it further when you step forward and just push your hands. Okay, you evert naturally as the foot drops in, so dorsiflexion and eversion. When you land, you adduct anyway. So dorsiflexion, eversion and adduction here. In order to drive that further, drop a hand in to get more eversion or more adduction, drive the hand in like so. Taking that from there, step wide. Still getting dorsiflexion and eversion, but with abduction now. Now we're going to go plantar flexion. Now we're going to go dorsiflexion, inversion, and adduction. So starting here, we're just going to go and reach the outside of the foot. Just changing the driver. Again, we can take it to abduction when we reach wide. Still reaching over to the outside of the foot. Obviously mine needs some work on it. We can also take it plantar flexion. So we're going back the way and in, like so. So plantar flexion. Abduction this time, because the calcaneus is moving the opposite way, and eversion. Or we could go plantar flexion and adduction if we come across to this side, still driving eversion because the foot's still dropping in. Then what we can do is come plantar flexion and inversion, so we would come across here. Back a bit further. Again, still abducting the foot. And if we wanted to adduct the foot, all we do is come across, still keeping inversion, but we'd reach the other way, like so. Or what we could do is we could rotate in this way, keeping on the outside of the foot. Like so.